Well, I hope he doesn't have to stand in front of some one of his players' moms and explain why they're doing it. Because I'll bet, and I've had both of these teams enough over the years, I've never seen or heard Northwestern getting called for this type of a foul. But this other team, they'll rack 4 or 5 of them up. It's even gotten to the point where the commissioner of the Big Ten suspends players for these type of hits. We flag it, he suspends them for the next game. We can't play football that way. The game is violent and tough enough without these type of hits. And we've got to ensure if that's not a problem here in Australia, we've got a responsibility as officials, we've got a responsibility as coaches, we've got a responsibility as players not to play the game that way. It's violent and tough enough, our emotions can go enough with our opponents without this type of contact. I'm telling you, you're going to spend time in a wheelchair when you get to be 45 years old. You're going to be wondering why your head's sitting over here. It's got to come out of the game. Don't let it, if it's not a problem here, don't let it in here. Okay? Play the game right. Coach will say, what do you want my guy to do? I want your guy to get his head to the side, keep it up, and not drive with the crown of that helmet through his chin. I want you to leave that receiver who's an overthrown pass and he doesn't have a chance. You can go hit him, but don't be taking him out from the shoulders up. Our NCAA rule says you go after a defenseless player from the shoulders up. They don't say that defenseless player is a quarterback, a receiver, a punt returner. Any one of the 11 guys on the field, you go after him from the shoulders up. Whether you use your forearm, your shoulders, or your helmet, that's a foul. If we think it's flagrant with an intent to injure, usually it is when you go that high, you can be disqualified from the game. So please, if you're thinking about doing it to somebody else, remember there may be somebody else out there thinking about you. That has to stay out of the game. Let's get back to a good news situation. You know, I was telling you about replay and that, you know, how much I love it, you know. And it really seems like, hey, what a savior. Well, we had the replay situation where we had a low pass over the middle. Guys were covering it, and we weren't sure if this was a catch or not. So we went and we spotted the ball, and coach was yelling, happened to be Coach Carr again, yelling about the fact that this was an incomplete pass. It skipped in. So we kind of got a new ball, took our time, kind of give replay a chance, because in the college game, they can shut it down anytime to look at it. So we don't get any shutdown, and I kind of look at Coach Carr and say, hey, they didn't shut it down, it must be a catch. And he said, well, then I'll take a timeout. You can look at it for another 2 minutes. So we waited 2 minutes and no buzz. So hey, I kind of look at Coach Carr, and I'm feeling pretty bold and brass right now because we took all that time before the timeout. We took 2 minutes on the timeout. This is a dead banger, man. It's a catch. I looked at Coach Carr and I said, told you, must be a catch. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, oh, all right, must be. After the game, we were showered, changed. We're waiting for our replay guy to come in. And when he walks in the room, I said, hey, Jimmy, I said, that low pass in the first half over the middle, good catch, huh? He said, oh, yeah, it was a good catch. I said, I knew it. He said, oh, we only had one problem with it. I said, well, what was that? He said, 3 minutes before, the whole replay system crashed, and we didn't get a chance to see it when it happened. He said it was at halftime, about 20 minutes later, that they got the replay system up, got it up, and they were able to look at it. And he said, yeah, it was a good catch. And I had a lesson I learned that day. When you think the world is perfect, and it's here to save the day, maybe it ain't working, you know? So it's not an infallible piece of a tool that we have. The other question is, people ask me, do you officiate the replay? And my stock answer is simply this: if I see the call, I make the call. It's not there to make the call for me. If I see the call and I know the call, I make the call. Now, if I'm smart and I haven't got a good look at the play, call it the best way you can so replay can solve it. But if you want to rely on replay, someday on a real incredible tight play, replay is going to be down. So it's not a perfect system, okay? Not perfect at all. But we shouldn't officiate the replay, but we should be smart about how we use it. I mentioned to you how the game's changed and about the philosophies that we have on things and that. And that's one of the important things, is that we have a rule book, but we have to have philosophies to work with the rules. If we want people just to go out there and take that rule book and say, here's the rule, this is a foul, here's the rule, that's a foul, we'll destroy the game. We have to have officials who understand the rules, know the rules, and know how to apply them. And that takes experience, that takes a lot to do. I would hope that of all the players that we have in here, and we have, what, 6 teams? 8 teams. 6 teams here. 6 teams, all the players are on every team. You want to get into coaching, get into coaching. But there's room in this life in officiating for officials. We need more officials. We want officials who are, we want players who have, officials who have played the game. We need people with experience. People with experience have a much better success chance in officiating to be a better official. If we have officials who haven't played the game, can they learn the game? Yes, they can. But that's a long learning curve. People who have played the game, coached the game, they have a much better chance. But the thing you have to have, you better have some thick skin. You better not just have thick skin from fans, because you ask these guys over here, would they rather have a fan on their case, or would they rather have me sitting in a room on their case? Okay? I think they'll take the hooting and hollering in the stadium any day. Okay? But it's a profession we need more people in. So please, when you're done with your playing career, think about officiating. You'll be surprised at some of the things that it can do for you. I mentioned to you a little bit, and we're just about wrapping up here, about back home and the neat situation we had when we learned about our grandchildren. I've got my wife back home that, God bless her, as I said to you, she's been a saint through all this. She's been home raising the family most of the time while I'm out officiating and having a great time with that. But my wife Barbara would go once in a while to the football games. And she hates it when I tell this story, but since she's not here, I can tell the story. We had a game at the University of Minnesota in the Humphrey Dome. And so my wife and some other wives are at the game. We're out officiating. And the first quarter is just about to end. And this old guy leans over the seat to my wife and the other wives that were there and says, "Hey ladies, can I ask you a question?" And they said, "Well, yeah, sure I can. Yeah, what's the question?" And they said, "Well, you know, Illinois scored a touchdown and you didn't cheer. Minnesota scored a touchdown. You didn't cheer. Why would you go to a football game if you're not going to cheer for somebody?" Now, my wife is smart enough that you don't always admit who you're with, because that can make for a long night. So she just says, "Oh, I just like to go to college football games." And this guy looks at her and says, "Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, honey, but you're a little old to be chasing these college kids." And then she got all flustered and she says, "No," and he goes, "I know who you are, you're the officials' wives. They always sit here in this room." So he set them up, right? He just knew he had some new ones to set up. So, but my wife was just flustered by all that. So of course, what happens late in the game, I wasn't a head referee at that time, I was a line judge. Illinois is coming down to score, the game's on the line at the end of the line, we're in Minnesota. Kid dives for the end zone, ball breaks the plane, in possession. I'm up touchdown, he gets hit, the ball goes into the end zone, further into the end zone. Minnesota thinks they've recovered it to save the game. I'm standing in Humphrey Dome right over this player going, touchdown. Ty Dothard, the runner from Illinois, gets up off the ground and picks me up in the air because he's so happy about this touchdown call. I'm in an end zone in the Humphrey Dome being held up in the air by a player. And I looked down and I said, "You need to put me down, you need to do it now." And of course he did, but here we are in Minnesota and I've got an Illinois player picking me up, celebrating in the end zone. Minnesota loses the game, we're heading up and we go up this tunnel, and what we didn't see, but we saw it on the film, this fan comes running down, and at Minnesota it's about a 10-foot rail to get to the field. This fan comes running down the rail as we're heading up the tunnel, and he's screaming and yelling at us, and he hit the rail, and he flipped right over the thing. Comes crashing down on the ground, just about kills himself. And as he's starting to get up to kind of regain his balance, the security people come over, slapping handcuffs on him and throwing him against the wall a second time. And so it was an interesting evening in there. We had the opportunity a couple of years ago to work Ohio State, Penn State at Michigan. Joe Paterno, Lloyd Carr, same year that I think Penn State that year only lost one game. It happened to be this night. And third quarter, or 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, we put a couple seconds back on the clock when Penn State had a drive going because the clock operator had a timing snafu. Joe loved it when we did that, gave him a little extra time to keep his drive going. And then Michigan got the ball back and was driving the other way, and the clock operator had another timing snafu. So at 30 seconds to 28 seconds, we put a few seconds back on the clock, and Joe wasn't as fond of us putting that time on the clock like it was before. Inevitably what happens is Michigan's got a play with 1 second left. They throw a pass in the end zone, touchdown. They win the game. Penn State's only loss of the year. They don't go to the national championship. Joe's a little upset about it. And so he's asked, when we went over, when it happened, we went to him and told him, here's why we're putting time back on the clock. Just like we did when we put time on the clock for you. And Joe's kind of got this old way of, when he doesn't agree with a call, he'll just go with both arms and just say BS and walk away. And so our officials went over, told him, he gave him the 2-arm thing and walked away. And after the game, they said to him, Coach Paterno, what was the deal with the officials putting time back on the clock at the end of the game? And in the press conference, Coach Paterno said, gee, I don't know, they never told me. They didn't tell me why, okay? So I got a call from the conference office the next day. They were more interested in finding out whether we were communicating with the coaches than they were about whether we were right or wrong on the time. We said, we told Coach, but he just gave us the old BS and walked away. And the conference looked at the timing situations, they put them in computers and timed them, and they said, we're absolutely right on the 2 timing corrections. They even came out with a statement. But people ask me, geez, well, you know, why would Joe do that? Joe's Joe, and coaches are coaches sometimes, and we told him, but he heard it, he didn't like what he heard, you know? There's a difference there between the two. But I tell people that if Joe Paterno were standing on the same stage with me, and you were all from the press, and Joe told you I didn't tell you, and I told you I did, whose story is the better story? Joe's getting the benefit of the doubt. I know that. I understand coaches. I understand the press. There's no way in the world that I try to win an argument in public, okay? My job's to satisfy my boss. My job's to satisfy the guys I work with. My job is there. That's where my satisfaction of being right or wrong comes from. It doesn't come, I can't win in the press, nor should I try. But we're not a story. We're only a story as officials when you get to kick a little dirt, when you get to do a little screaming and yelling. And officials just need to understand that and accept it. You don't have to feel sorry for us. We just have to accept that. But I want to leave you with this thought. This is something I believed in for years, and it's something that I know that the guys that I'm working with here believe in. The football game out in the field only belongs to one group of people. And that's players playing the game. Coaches are guests. Like it or not, you're a guest. The officials are guests. The fans are guests. This game belongs to you. I want to be right out there for you. And that's as a whole, not as a team. I want to be right, and these guys want to be right for you. We're not perfect. And I'm not going to cop out and say you're not perfect. We're not perfect. But we're sure working to get better. And so I commend the guys that are working here. Again, thank you for having me here. Great place to be. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Should be some good football. They're even trying to talk me into working a game tomorrow. Yeah. Be careful what you wish for. Good luck to everybody here, and thank you again.
Bill, at this time, we at Gridiron Australia have a couple of tokens of appreciation to thank you for all the hard work that you've done this week, your speech tonight, so thank you very much. Steve and Dave will present you with your tokens. We've got a plaque, a hat, and your own tournament shirt.